So good evening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that guided meditation by Adyashanti, the three centers meditation. If you'd like to, listen to it again, meditate with it again, it's on YouTube. You search for Adyashanti three centers, it'll come up. So today we're continuing our exploration of healing and transforming and relating to trauma. And as I promised, that we're going to be looking at the flower sermon, as it's often referred to. Can't really call it a talk because he doesn't say anything in it, so they call it the flower sermon. And it's basically the story of the origin of Zen Buddhism. So it's got that's Zen itself attributes its origin to this particular sermon, in which the Buddha basically, and it was towards the end of the Buddha's life that he gave this this sermon. He took the sangha to a quiet pond for instructions, but there were no words. He simply reached into the muck of the pond and pulled out a lotus flower. And it said that it was a white lotus flower. So he basically gave a wordless talk to the sangha by simply holding up this lotus flower, and as it said, the flower still had its roots. It was dripping with the mud from the bottom of the pond, and then the beautiful fully bloomed lotus flower. And he just simply presented it to each person in turn that was present. So this is the flower sermon, and you have to understand. Usually, the Buddha, when he went for a talk and instruction, had a lot to say, and probably even gave you a couple of lists to work with of things. In this case, it was quite different, and what it means has been talked about and written about, quite extensively. So, but I want to put it to you. What do you think, or what does this mean to you? If you came to a talk, well, even if you came here tonight, it might not work so well with Zoom. I don't know, but there was simply a presentation of a lotus flower, fully bloomed lotus flower with its roots, dripping with mud from just being freshly pulled out of a pond. What does that transmit or teach, or what arises, I guess, when you reflect on that type of a sermon?
Well, I mean, for me, the thing that immediately comes to mind with that is the saying, "No mud, no lotus," and that kind of strikes it. So without the shit, without the suffering, there is no release from suffering, which to me is that bloomed flower. So that's the imagery that immediately comes to mind for me.
the image or the thought that came to me was kind of, it occurred to me that what comes to my mind is contextual. So, what happened today, for example, caused me to relate to that in a certain way. So yesterday or tomorrow, I would relate to it in a completely different way. It would make me think of something different, perhaps. So today, I thought of the ephemeral nature of the flower and what a miracle it is, and how beautiful and yet how fleeting. Tomorrow, who knows?
Thank you.
To me, it represents the whole universe that's contained in this plant, and how we are interdependent on everything.
I think too, with the flower, it reminds us to focus on the moment, that beauty that's there, and all that muck is around us, but to appreciate and that beauty in the moment amongst all the chaos and dirt of life. Thank you.
I'm thinking if this labeling of the flower as nice and the muck as ugly might be somewhat artificial. To what extent are they just conventions or labels or whatever? Why is it that all of a sudden we decided the flower is the thing that's nice and the mud is the thing that's not nice? Maybe they're just labels, and we're just getting tripped on the labels. That's where my mind is going right now.
I'm thinking that what comes to my mind is you have the flower, and you have this mud. You have flowers are. I mean, it's like a natural wonder. Every flower that you see, and the mud is part of it. That makes the flower grow. Flower couldn't grow without the mud, without the soil. And we didn't do anything for it to be there. It's just there for us to wonder about. And it's really a miracle. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. So it comes to my mind.
I was going to go get a lotus flower, but I couldn't find one. So to offer the talk. It's Mahākāśyapa. I don't know if you've heard of Mahākāśyapa. Was the one that simply smiled when the flower was presented. And it is said, as the story goes, that he was immediately enlightened, and simply smiled. And then the Buddha said, "What can be said, I have said to you, and what cannot be said, I have given to Mahākāśyapa." So that's kind of how it ended. You know, what can be said, I have said to you, and what cannot be said, I have given to Mahākāśyapa. So from that day forward, really, the Mahākāśyapa became a major teacher for the lineage for the Buddha. As I said, it happened quite later on in the Buddha's life. And for Zen, I don't know how much you folks know about Zen Buddhism. You know, it's very much a just sit kind of practice. It's not a very, well, it's, I guess, over time become a little more wordy in terms of Roshi's giving talks, but its history is one of more wordless practice. An emphasis on meditation and long sessions of meditation practice, and that wordless sermon is kind of what planted that notion of, you know, the transmission of the Dharma is beyond words. To put it that way, it's a wordless transmission, or a direct transmission without words. I think that's perhaps why I played Adyashanti's meditation. It actually just occurred to me, because Adyashanti is very much a kind of teacher that seems to transmit something beyond the words when you're in his presence. I guess I've studied with him for 10 to 15 years, somewhere in there. I've been to several week-long retreats with him. And there's just this transmission. You feel like you're really what's the word, absorbing, or there's something being known at a deep level. But if you kind of leave a talk or a session with him and try and write down anything he said, there's nothing you just can't think of anything to write down other than, wow, you know, that was, I mean, you know, it worked, you know. And I actually went to one of his talks, and I went with an analytic mind, which it's not something I make a habit of, but I was really curious what the analytic mind would pick up, right? And basically it picked up, this guy's not saying anything. He's being very repetitive, and he's not really saying anything. So it's really, he's communicating at a different level. And I think that's probably why it came to me to play his talk. But it's a kind of a direct transmission that's occurring. And I've reflected over the years on this flower sermon. It's meant different things to me. You know, as Anita put it, it's contextual in a way, and not just day by day, moment by moment, but, you know, year by year, decade by decade, sort of what resonates. But that image is always kind of there for me as a teaching. And it's something you can just kind of carry with you as a teaching. And that's why I wanted to offer this as well, to kind of plant the seed of it. of that image. And you might find that it just arises for you in certain instances. And I'll talk a little bit about this later, but it came to my mind, not last week, but the week before, just kind of randomly. And it sort of was the impetus for offering this talk. And I tried to, think about, well, what has the talk meant to me over the years? I kind of came up with three kind of main things, and you folks hit. You identified all three of them and many more. So it's interesting to hear you say what it meant to you, because it can mean so many different things. It's not to us. There's not a single teaching there. It can mean so many different things. So the word, of course, the wordless transmission of teachings is one of the the key elements of it. It's what he's teaching can't be known by the mind and through language. And the second is the mystery, and that word came up, the mystery of the flower or of anything, right? And for me, that mystery can be a dwelling place or an anchor. And in relation to working with trauma, that can actually be a very, that beauty or that mystery is a better word, but beauty as well, can actually be a resting place, a soothing, comforting resting place for the mind during a difficult time when one is triggered, for example, which came up last session. And the third is, which was also brought up, is the notion of this beauty arising, which can be symbolized. The lotus flower is often in the teachings symbolizes enlightenment. In particular, a white lotus, it is said, it symbolizes enlightenment in the Buddha's teachings. And it was, as the story goes, a white lotus that he held up. So that beauty arising out of the muck, and the fact that there's the stories presented, he's holding up a flower that's, dripping with the muck and the roots that it had been growing in. So the beauty and joy arising out of muck was the third one. So the wordless teaching. The flower embodies both the form and the formless at once. And that statement could require a whole talk in and of itself. I just realized as I said it, but it's the reminder that all form can be appreciated, but at the same time are fleeting and impermanent. And that was also in your reflections brought up. And being central to Zen, it really brings up emphasizes that the importance of direct experience of just our direct experience over our beliefs or our intellectual analysis. It's really this direct experience over. So just sitting in Zen, you hear that phrase often. Just sitting. It emphasizes just the sitting and experiencing whatever's arising over any doctrines or words or concepts. Just being present with whatever's arising. That is emphasized here. There's a conversation between Emperor Wu and the Bodhidharma in the teachings on the emptiness, which is pointing, and the word emptiness also points to this this notion. So Wu asked, who is an emperor, asked Bodhidharma, so what is the highest meaning of the noble truths? Quite the question, eh? What is the highest meaning of the noble truths? And Bodhidharma replied, there is no noble truth, there is only emptiness. So he's bringing the emperor more into that wordless realm, out of the realm of ideas. And then Wu asked, then who is standing before me? Another interesting question. And Bodhidharma answered, I don't know, Your Majesty. Or actually, I know not, Your Majesty. I know not, Your Majesty. So they're pointing there, and this comes throughout the teachings, really, that ultimate reality, our Buddha nature, true nature, cannot be known by thought. Cannot be known by thought. It's known in some other way. If the mind continually reaches, right? It's thought, reaching thoughts, reaching ideas, reaching more thoughts, reaching more ideas to try to grasp it and figure it out. But it cannot be known through thought. Even by the Buddha's own teachings. The Buddha pointed this out, that even by his own teachings, it cannot be known. That's the finger pointing at the moon. The Lakavatara Sutta says, it's said, these teachings are only a finger pointing toward noble wisdom. They are intended for the consideration of guidance of the discriminating minds of all people, but they are not the truth itself, and can only be self-realized within one's own deepest consciousness. They're not the truth itself, but can only be self-realized within one's deepest consciousness. And Ibn Arabi, one of the great Sufi mystics, wrote that mystical knowledge, pointing to the same ultimate reality, they call it mystical knowledge, cannot be arrived at by the intellect by means of any rational thought process, for this kind of perception comes only by divine disclosure. The Sufi's example pointing towards some kind of divine disclosure, some kind of grace. It doesn't mean it has to be that can mean many different things. So that's one of the things that it's pointing to for me, is this wordless transmission. And it doesn't mean we never use concepts, right? We never use thought, because intelligent concepts can actually point towards the truth, towards reality. Their finger pointing towards, as the Buddha said, teachings are only a finger pointing towards noble wisdom. As long as we realize that all these concepts are just fingers pointing at it, and they're not it. That's why I always say, don't believe anything I say to you. Don't make a belief out of it. Test it out in your own experience. And then it becomes known for you through that experience. So that's the kind of the first aspect of it. The dwelling in the mystery, and this is the part that arose for me week before last. So a few sessions ago, we explored different ways to relate to or get to know difficult states. I don't know if you remember that. There was the gradual and the direct methods, and this is very useful. I don't think it'll hurt to go through it again. The direct path is to simply see, to realize, to see and realize that difficult emotions are not self. So there's a non-identification with the emotions that are arising. And there's a knowing that your true nature is the still, spacious awareness that's always present behind the difficult emotion. And Ajahn pointed to that in the guided meditation, as he does in every guided meditation, really. So that's the direct. And then the gradual, you get to know that resistance or aversion to the difficult emotion only acts to heighten it. Right? You sort of learn that gradually. Okay, here I am resisting, and it's just getting worse. So you learn through that kind of process of, okay, so the resisting it doesn't work. So what else, right? We look for other ways of relating to it. So you can go to a single focus or expanded focus. Remember we talked about that, single focus versus expanded focus, and external focus versus external focus. And people talked about a single focus can be the breath, that the single internal focus, right? The breath in the base, in the bottom of the belly would be a single internal focus. A single external focus might be something like a candle, music. And then you have an external single focus. Sorry, that's the candle of the music. You have an external open focus, like just taking in nature, and you can have an internal open focus, which is choiceless awareness, thoughts, all the sense doors, sounds arising within your senses, sense consciousness. So those are all the kind of places that we can place attention, right? Whether it's internal or external, single or multiple or open. So what one is, and this came up as a very helpful place to draw attention when difficulties arise, if one is dealing with trauma, and that is an open external focus. So being really open and present for what's arising externally. And a nature hike was actually the example given. So similar to that is an open focus towards just the mystery of existence, of a flower, of a pine needle. I mean, it can be anything. Like, it's all unfathomable, mysterious. The mere fact that it exists in some form that we can perceive, right, with these eyes, and then form an image and put a word. It's all a mystery, and that can be a really interesting dwelling place in a difficult time. Is just being open to that mystery. It really takes us beyond our concerns and into the broader context of life, and the mystery of that life. And a flower is an incredible mystery. I mean, it's perceived by most as beauty, right, which is a concept and a construct that we place on it. And mud could be conceived as beauty by someone else, right? But for the most part, it's got color, and it somehow captures our perceptual capacities in a way that we go kind of wow, right? I don't know if you notice, a lot of Dharma teachers will have flowers, on a table beside them. It's quite a common thing that you might notice, and that's kind of pointing to that mystery that's beyond the words that they're that they're offering. So it's as a practice during a difficult time. So I was we can connect with life itself in those difficult times, and it can be helpful. So that for the story is, in my personal experience, was a difficult mind state arose, and it really just appeared. There was no papancha, no storytelling, no. It wasn't the morning. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and there'll be a stinky mind state. It'll be present, just to kind of, and it could be that from dreaming or whatever. This is just walking down the street, and a difficult mind state arose. And I was walking beside a forest. So spontaneously, awareness went to the life present around me. So I was dwelling in the mystery of tree branches, pine cones, each pine needle, each kind of snowflake hanging from the trees, and kind of a happiness arose, a happiness that could be really felt in that moment. Arose spontaneously, and all I did was, I didn't really do much except allow awareness to open to the mystery of life rather than the crappy mind state that had arisen in me. It was just a really almost perceptible shift, but completely changed how I felt. And what came up after the reflection came up after that was, wow, this is like the flower sermon. Just the power of just dwelling in that mystery, dwelling in the mystery of a flower. For many years, we had flowers around all the time in the house. We've kind of gotten away from that, but for many years, it would always be. And they didn't have to be fresh flowers. They could be. I remember my dad would come over and say, "You should get," kind of his generation. The man bought flowers for his flowers home from work for his wife, and that kind of image. He says, "You should get your wife new flowers. These are all wilting." But really, for me, the wilting of the flowers shows the impermanence of them. So I would let them express their life fully, not, they're starting to wilt, I better, switch in the fresh ones. And just and I know Ajahn Varadamo in Perth at the Tisarana Monastery will often have pretty much wilted, dead flowers, and he'll keep them there, right? In his, when he gives a talk. And it's, I always find that's very telling in his teaching style. So that's the story. So it's connecting with life, is also connecting with our essence. So connecting with a flower, connecting with a pine needle, it's connecting with our essence, and it's connecting with really happiness itself, uncaused happiness. Happiness that's always present, that's not caused by getting what we want or attaining anything. It's just it's our essence. I want to play a little talk. It's a talk by Adyashanti. Let me just get it up here. Get it onto this screen. I hope. Oh. Interesting. Anju doesn't want to come over to this screen. Let's try something else here. I'll try moving the dialog box over. Okay. He's still over there. Okay. So you might only hear him. It's just a headshot of him. So actually Try something else here. Oh, weird. Oh, here we go. Okay.
And it's so strange. And the happiness doesn't come because we got everything we wanted. The happiness becomes because we realize we don't need this spiritual presence. It doesn't need anything to be happy. That's the happiness. Does that make sense? It's not the happiness of everything worked out. My life actually ended up just the way I manifested everything I ever wanted. I'm driving a Bentley and in a big house and I'm wearing spiritual clothing. Do you know? It's because from the perspective of that spiritual presence, its nature is well-being, happiness. For no reason. Nothing needs to happen. Things will always happen. Your life will progress, right? It'll continue along its way. You may or may not get the success your mind wanted. You may or may not become the thing that your mind wanted to become. But the nice thing is, none of that ultimately has relevance anymore. It happens or it doesn't. And that's it.
So that was Ajit 10 years ago, probably. Yeah. How many people have seen Ajit before? Okay, it's new to most of you. Yeah. Yeah, he's a popular teacher, no doubt. He's got lots of books if you want to read some of his writings. Really, he brings together Zen and Advaita Vedanta teachings, non-dual teachings with Zen. I really love his early talks. For some reason, maybe it goes back to when I first started to resonate with his teaching. But he's really talking about, you know, that uncaused happiness that I mentioned. You know, it doesn't need everything to be a particular way. And I think connecting with the mystery is can really put us in touch with that. And I think, you know, the third aspect, I'll just go quickly through this third one, is the beauty and the joy, connecting with the beauty and the joy, and realizing that too that arises out of the muck. If you want to, if that symbolism is meaningful to you, then yeah, it's the lotus flower signifies enlightenment. In fact, a closed bud of a lotus flower symbolizes the time just before enlightenment. It's another symbol within Buddhism that is both born and grows out of the mud. The lotus flower requires the mud to be born and to grow, and the mud nourishes the roots. And that can, the mud nourishing the roots can represent kind of the messiness of our human lives. You know, the flower rising above the mud, the stem remains in the mud, kind of where we live our lives. If that symbol resonates with you, a Zen verse says, may we exist in muddy water with purity like a lotus. That's a Zen saying, and may we exist in muddy water with purity like a lotus. Again, pointing towards that symbol. And it's in, we've spoken about this so much, it's in experiencing the mud. I think we called it shit last week, right? Shit warriors, mud warriors. It's in experiencing that's the shit and the mud, that liberation occurs. It's people come to this Dharma and because of shit in their lives in many cases, and then it's that which propels their understanding. Understanding grows out of our experience with the mud in our lives. Do you guys remember that quote from Nisargadatta? It's one of my favorites. Wisdom is knowing that I am nothing. Love is knowing that I am everything. And in between the two, my life moves. Wisdom is knowing I am nothing. Love is knowing that I am everything. And in between the two, my life moves. So for me, it's connecting with that sense of emptiness, not self, right? That's I am nothing. Right? It's empty, not self. It's connecting with that, but at the same time, connecting with our interconnection, with life, with each other. Love, you could call it love, interconnection with the mystery. I think each one of you are just like this mystery. And to love is recognizing that interconnection. And knowing this can be very healing. Knowing that shit just happens, right, is very liberating. Was for me. Knowing that shit just happens. Shit happens. If I think I'm in control, then yeah, it's my fault. But once I let go of the thinking that I'm in control, it's just shit happening. Right? That's it. That's all it is. So that not self really frees us from the notion that we have to kind of, be constantly in our heads to prevent shit from happening. I went through many years of this, many years suffering doing this, buried in I think somebody said they felt at times like their head's going to explode. Just this constant struggle with life. I've got to think of it. I've got to really make sure I do everything I can so that shit doesn't happen. And when shit happens, if I had just thought of that, shit wouldn't have happened. And you kind of get rewarded every once in a while, right? Because you do avoid some shit with your mind, right? You can avoid some, but you're not going to avoid it all, definitely, and not avoid a lot of it, and you're going to cause more suffering for yourself in the attempt. So yeah, it's letting go of that can be very, very healing. Very transformative. Letting go of that. And of course, sometimes the after effects of trauma are so overwhelming that, we move to self-soothing and self-comforting. And then we can, kind of come back to another day. We kind of calm calm the body, maybe deep belly breathing, connecting with an external mystery, bringing us back to the present moment. And then we might want to disperse energy by running, jogging, shaking, doing some of those somatic exercises, laughing yoga, and then coming back, kind of reflecting on, okay, what just happened? Holding the question in awareness without expecting an answer. What just happened? So that's another way of dealing with triggers. But the fact that triggers just arise and there's nothing we can't think our way out of it. And so we're connecting with not self, we're connecting with emptiness, I am nothing, and we're connecting with our interconnection at the same time, with love, with the connection with the mystery of life. Yeah. So I'll leave it there and open it up for any questions or comments. Any more reflections about the flower sermon? I hope you enjoyed the flower sermon. So, you know what? There's hardly any talks out there on the flower sermon. I searched everywhere and people don't talk about the flower sermon. For me, it's one of the most amazing sermons ever. I bet if you asked the Buddha what his favorite sermon was, if he was around, he'd probably say the flower sermon. Maybe projecting a little there. It's one of my favorites. So.
Given the nature of the flower sermon, maybe it's appropriate that nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
That nothing is said.
Yeah. Well, then people should give flower sermons. Just go up there and go to IMS and Joseph Goldstein comes out there on the stage, Site Meditation Society, and I've never heard of that happening either.
So Stephen, what you're looking for is a flower sermon with subtitles?
Yeah, flower sermon. Yeah.
Something occurred to me about the mud. A lot was said about the mud, and Manuel had a good comment about how we label it and we make a judgment about it, and it was an interesting observation. And muck is kind of unpleasant, and I think it's almost visceral. The flower is beautiful. But for me, one of the things as I was thinking about it, kind of occurred to me is that out of muck, which is really chaos. I mean, it's a gamish, it's a mixture of all kinds of stuff. Out of that comes incredible order and beauty. And that's something that to me is an interesting thing to contemplate. Slide. Share that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched a show called Kiss the Earth just a couple days ago. Wyatt and I watched it, and it talks about the earth and just the soil, just how alive it is. Like there's just so much going on in a handful of dirt. And how that's actually what keeps everything going. And how the earth, if we left it alone, would actually absorb the CO2 that's in the atmosphere, our legacy CO2, the CO2 that we've already put up there. If we kind of left it and didn't keep tilling it, turning it, and if we left it it could absorb, I forget how many megatons carbon, but significant amounts. So it's interesting that the mystery of the mud, the beauty of the mud. People take mud baths, for goodness sake. I mean, right? It's all kinds of nutrients and beauty in the mud. But then beauty grows out of it. Life grows out of the soil. Yeah. It's a show worth watching if you're interested in the climate change and the role that soil can play in it.
Yeah, so the corollary is, why is it that the part that has the nutrients and that enables growth is the one that we don't like? I mean, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's because we don't fully understand the muck. It's the mystery that we can't fathom.
And I don't know if it'd be taking the metaphor too far, but I don't think we understand our own muck, like our difficulties, if we're using that analogy of muck and difficulties, muck and shit happening. It's not really shit at all. it's our life, right? It's a label we've given it when it's really our life, and it's our life, and it's where understanding grows from, is born and grows from. Same way the lotus flower is born and grows from. Yeah. It can put us in a whole other mindset in terms of how we hold what we call difficulties, difficult emotions, and so on.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a parallel between the old story of good, bad, who knows, and the muck and the lotus. I mean, we don't know what's good and what's bad. I mean, what appears tomorrow is different, and then the day after is different again. What we thought was bad today, it's good tomorrow, and then it ends. And I'm trying to make a parallel between these two ideas, and that's where my mind is today, is to compare the good, bad, who knows story with the muck and the flower.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. That was really good. I really enjoyed the Ajahn Shanti, yeah, and in your talk. I think I only want to make one comment, and that's after this discussion about the flower sermon and the muck and the lotus. I think the flower seems very, very appealing because it's, it has this form that's like very distinct and discrete, and it's easy for us to have an affinity towards it. Like, this is the thing that's like so good. And it is beautiful, but at the same time, it's so much harder. Like Manuel said, this muck, it's like, why don't we like the muck? It sounds pretty good, actually, people. It just, it kind of makes me feel like, okay, we need to like lean into the muck more. It's kind of like in meditation, you know, if we can, like, by leaning into those, and I'm thinking of when he was talking in the in the guided meditation of when he was focusing on the solar plexus, and it's this darkness and this mystery. And that's really to me, that's represents the muck. Like that's where you can really, like, you feel that there's just this profundity that, you know, that just has this sort of really all-encompassing quality to it, that I think there's just so much in the muck, so much in this dark place, this mysterious place that we can learn from. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. And I think I'm going to go back to that guided meditation, because I thought that was a really, like, when you think of the muck and you think of that focusing on with his words and bringing you into this dark kind of mysterious spot, it's really powerful. It's a really good way of kind of getting into this space of awareness, and just experiencing that kind of shadowiness. So thank you.